My sister broke the one rule I gave her, the one boundary I thought even she could not cross. She nearly got my baby killed, then later showed up at a family dinner like it was nothing, holding a glass of wine and acting casual. When I demanded to know why she kept doing this to us, she shrugged and said something that still makes my stomach turn. He's still breathing, is he not? That was 10 months ago. Today she was screaming my name through the Ring camera, begging me to stop, like I was the monster in her story. Before all of this, my sister and I were never close. But we also were not enemies. We had the kind of relationship people describe as fine, if you do not look too closely. We did not share secrets, we did not borrow each other's clothes, we did not whisper about boys or crushes or any of the things sisters on TV do. When it was just the two of us, the silence felt thick and awkward, but neither of us cared enough to fix it. We simply existed in the same house and moved around each other like polite strangers. Everything shifted when she turned 21. It sounds dramatic, but the first time she drank alcohol, something in her snapped into place, like a door opening that never closed again. At first, it was small, harmless-looking stuff. She would drink once a month, then once a week. Then suddenly it was every day, like it was as normal as brushing her teeth. I watched it happen in slow motion, and it felt like I was watching someone sink deeper into water while smiling and waving at me as if nothing was wrong. What made it worse was that she did not want to drown alone. I never liked alcohol. Even before I had any real reason, I just did not like the smell, the taste, the idea of being out of control. I wanted to stay away from it, and I thought that was my choice to make. But my sister treated my boundary like a joke. She pushed and teased and pressured me, like my refusal was a personal insult to her. On her 22nd birthday, she handed me what looked like a bottle of water. I was thirsty, so I opened it and took a big sip. It was not water. It was straight vodka, and it hit my throat like fire. I started coughing so hard my eyes watered. I spat it out, choking, and when I looked up, she was holding her phone, filming me, laughing like it was the funniest thing she had ever seen. In that moment, I felt something harden in me. I did not scream. I did not throw the bottle. I did not hit her. I simply told her, very clearly, that she was getting one last chance. If she ever tried to trick me into drinking again, I was done with her. No contact. No second chances. No apologies. For about a month, it seemed like she understood. Or maybe she just got bored. Then came her anniversary with her boyfriend, Thomas. They invited me out with them to celebrate. My sister promised, with a bright smile and an overly sweet voice, that she would not try anything. She said we could just have dinner, enjoy ourselves, and go home. She acted like she had matured overnight. Of course it was a lie. The night started normal. We went to a place with dim lights and loud music, the kind of restaurant where everyone is slightly tipsy and pretending they are not. My sister ordered drinks for the table. I asked for something non-alcoholic, but she insisted she would handle it, like she was doing me a favor. She kept bringing me drinks that tasted like juice. They were so watered down that I did not even realize there was alcohol in them. One had vodka. One had whiskey. One had rum. I only know that now because she admitted it later, giggling like a child who pulled off a prank. By the third drink, I felt strange. My cheeks were warm. My head felt light, like it was floating a few inches above my body. The room started to spin, not fast, but enough to scare me. I had never been drunk before. I had never felt my own brain tilt sideways like that. I grabbed my sister's arm and asked what was happening to me, because I truly did not understand. Instead of helping, she laughed. She was tipsy too, and her honesty slipped out the way it sometimes does when people drink. She admitted she had been sneaking alcohol into my drinks all night. The anger that rose in me was so intense it felt like heat behind my eyes. I do not remember everything I said. I remember shaking. I remember pushing my chair back. I remember calling a cab right there at the table. When I got home, I sent her a voice message. My voice was cold, even though I was still dizzy. I told her I never wanted to see her again. I told her she was not my sister anymore. A week later, she called me, not to apologize, but to blame me. She said I had ruined her anniversary because after I left, people started asking questions. Someone noticed I was acting drunk. Someone noticed my sudden exit. When the truth came out, people looked at her like she was disgusting. She told me it was my fault for leaving like I made a scene. I did not even argue. I ended the call and blocked her. And life went on. For a while, cutting her off felt like a relief. The air around me felt lighter. The constant tension of waiting for her next trick disappeared. I focused on my own life. I met David, the man who would become my husband. He was steady in a way my family never was. He listened. He paid attention. He respected the word no like it mattered. We fell in love. We got engaged. We got married. My sister was not invited. She did not ask to come. She did not reach out. She did not send a gift or a message or even a fake apology. Then I got pregnant. And suddenly, like some twisted timing, she contacted me. She sent me a message saying she had seen my pregnancy announcement on Facebook through one of her friends' accounts. She said seeing it hit her in the heart. She said it made her realize that nothing mattered more than family. She apologized. She begged me to let her back into my life. She talked about how she wanted to be an aunt, how she wanted to be part of my baby's life. I stared at the screen for a long time. Part of me wanted to ignore her forever. Part of me wanted to believe in the fantasy of a sister who could change. Pregnancy does strange things to your emotions. It makes you think about childhood and family and what you want your baby to grow up with. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her for coffee. We met at a small brunch place, bright and cheerful, with plants in the windows and soft music. She showed up smiling and hugged me like we were close. She apologized again. She seemed calmer, more grown up. Then she ordered wine. Not 1 glass. 3. As she drank, she talked about how alcohol was just part of her life. She said she had no interest in giving it up. She said she could still be a good sister, a good aunt, even if she drank. But she promised she would never, ever force me to drink again. She acted like that was the only problem. I went home and thought about it for days. In the end, I decided to give her one more chance, mostly because I told myself I could control the situation. I could keep boundaries. I could keep her at a safe distance. I could protect my baby. For a while, it seemed like it worked. She respected my limits. She did not offer me drinks. She did not try to trick me. When she came around, she stayed at a level where she seemed only slightly tipsy, not falling over drunk. I started to believe, slowly, that maybe she had learned. Then my baby was born. Our son Jackson was everything. The way he curled his tiny fingers around mine, the way his face softened when he slept, the way his cries instantly rewired my entire nervous system. I became the kind of mother who heard every sound in the night, who memorized the shape of his breathing, who could tell if something was wrong just by the tone of a whimper. A year passed, and my sister acted stable enough that I made a choice I regret with every part of my soul. I let her come to my house. It was the first time she visited since Jackson was born. I made my rule clear before she even arrived. If she drank, she would not be allowed near the baby. No holding him, no feeding him, no sitting with him. Nothing. She told me it was fine. She said she understood. She said she would respect it. I had a bad feeling anyway. That gut warning that mothers talk about, the quiet alarm in your body that you ignore because you want to be reasonable. I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself the past year had given me proof she could behave. Then she showed up with 2 bottles of wine. My stomach dropped when I saw them, but she laughed it off like it was normal, like she brought flowers. David offered her a glass. He had one too, because he does drink sometimes and had no reason to think the night would turn into a nightmare. I did not drink. We sat in the living room talking. For a while it was fine. Jackson was nearby, safe in my sight. My sister kept drinking glass after glass. By the time the second bottle was halfway gone, she was clearly drunk. Her words were louder. Her laughs came too fast. Her balance looked slightly off. Still, nothing had happened yet. So I tried to hold on to that. Then she said she needed the bathroom. I pointed upstairs. She went up, and I waited a few minutes, listening for sounds of throwing up or stumbling, because even then I did not trust her. After a little while, I decided to check, just to make sure she was okay and not passed out in the bathroom. When I reached the top of the stairs, the bathroom door was open. She was not there. My heart started to pound as I walked down the hall. I reached my bedroom and froze. My sister was sitting on my bed, drunk out of her mind, holding my baby. Jackson was in her arms like a doll, his head supported badly, his small body pressed against her chest while she swayed slightly. For a second, everything in my vision narrowed, like the world tunneled into that image. She saw me and her face changed. Panic flickered through her eyes. She stood up quickly, trying to hand Jackson back. But she was drunk. Her feet were not steady. Her body moved too fast for her balance to catch up. She stumbled. And she dropped him. It happened in a sickening blur. Jackson slipped from her arms and hit the floor. I screamed, a sound I did not recognize as my own. I fell to my knees beside him, my hands shaking so badly I could barely touch him. He was crying loud and sharp, and the sound was both terrifying and relieving, because crying meant breathing. The fall was not from a huge height, thank God. It was from bed level, not from a staircase or something worse. I checked him frantically. No blood. No broken-looking limbs. Just shock and fear, and a baby's helpless cry. My sister was babbling apologies behind me, slurring and reaching, but I shoved her back without thinking. I called for David, my voice cracking, and he ran upstairs immediately. David took Jackson from me and held him close, trying to soothe him while I turned on my sister with a rage I cannot even properly describe. I grabbed her arm and dragged her downstairs, ignoring her protests. I pulled her outside because I did not want her in my house another second. I told her she had one rule. 1. She was not allowed near the baby when she drank. And she had broken it in the worst possible way. She cried and apologized and swore it was an accident. She said she just wanted to hold him for a moment. She said she did not think it was a big deal. I did not listen. I called a taxi and told her to leave. I told her I never wanted to speak to her again. I told her she was not welcome near my family. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. Because while I was focused on the fall, I did not know the other thing she had done. And that other thing was even worse. A few minutes after my sister left, David came downstairs with a look on his face that made my blood run cold. He was holding Jackson, who was suddenly throwing up. Not normal baby spit up. Vomit. David was crying, actually crying, as he called the hospital. His hands were shaking. His voice sounded like it was breaking. He told me my sister had fed Jackson wine. Not just a sip. Not an accidental taste. She had given him the remaining wine from her bottle like she was feeding a toy, like she did not understand he was a living human child. I felt like the floor dropped out from under me. The next hours were chaos. We called emergency services. The ambulance arrived. I rode in the back with Jackson, watching his tiny body, watching his eyes, watching his breathing, praying so hard my chest hurt. At the emergency room, doctors moved fast. They asked questions, took blood, checked vitals. They said the words alcohol poisoning, and I wanted to vomit. Jackson was an infant. An infant. His body was not built to handle alcohol. His liver could not process it like an adult's. Something that might make an adult dizzy could kill a baby. David and I paced the waiting room, holding hands so tightly it hurt. The hospital staff treated us like we were both victims and suspects. A social worker interviewed us, and I could see the doubt in her eyes. She asked the same questions again and again, as if she believed we were hiding something. She told us there would be a child welfare investigation because a baby had alcohol in his system. So in the middle of the worst night of my life, when my child was fighting poison in his body, I also had to defend myself like a criminal. We explained everything. We repeated it until it felt like we were bleeding the story out of our mouths. We told them about my sister, about her drinking, about the rule, about her sneaking upstairs, about the fall, about the wine. I called my sister over and over. No answer. I texted. No reply. I left voicemails. Nothing. She vanished. David had thrown her out, but we still expected, at the very least, a call to check if Jackson was alive. Even a selfish person would want to know. But she disappeared completely, which told me she knew exactly how serious it was, and she was running from it. After an agonizing night, the doctors finally said Jackson was going to be okay. I nearly collapsed. Relief hit me so hard my knees felt weak. I clung to David and cried until my throat hurt. The doctors said there was no permanent damage they could see right then, but they warned us that even small amounts of alcohol in a baby could have effects that might show up later. Developmental issues do not always appear immediately. We would need follow-ups. We would need to watch him closely. We brought Jackson home the next day, exhausted, terrified, and furious. While Jackson slept, I got in my car and drove to my sister's apartment. I had not slept. I was running on adrenaline and rage. My hands were tight on the steering wheel, and my brain replayed the night over and over. I banged on her door until Thomas answered. He looked hungover, confused, like he had no idea what was happening. He said Megan was not there. He said she had not come home after visiting us. I shoved my phone in his face and showed him pictures of Jackson in the hospital. I told him what she did. I told him she gave wine to my baby. The color drained from his face. His shock looked real. For the first time, I believed she had not even told him. She had left him in the dark and ran. Thomas admitted she had been getting worse. Drinking more. He said he tried to help, but he did not know what to do. I cut him off, because my patience was gone. I told him he had been enabling her. I told him he made excuses for her and protected her from consequences. I said the truth out loud. She almost killed my baby yesterday. He tried to defend her, saying she had been through hard times I did not understand. That was the moment I fully lost it. I told him exactly what I thought of both of them. I told him that if my sister came near my family again, I would call the police. If he helped her, I would make sure he faced consequences too. Then I walked out, shaking with anger. At home, David and I made an immediate decision. My sister was cut off forever. No more chances. No more conversations. No more family guilt. We blocked her phone number, her social media, her email. We installed a camera at the front door. We wrote everything down while it was fresh. For the next week, our entire world was Jackson. We watched him constantly. We barely slept. Every little sound made me jump. Every time he coughed, my heart raced. I could not stop imagining what could have happened if the doctors had not saved him. Just when we started to breathe again, the next nightmare arrived. My phone filled with messages from family. My sister had posted a crying video online, clearly drunk, saying I was keeping her away from her nephew out of spite. She painted herself as a loving aunt who made one small mistake. She acted like I was cruel, like I was punishing her because of old drama. Relatives believed her. They called me harsh. Heartless. Some said I was using the incident to keep our long feud alive, like protecting my baby was a personal revenge plot. I could not believe what I was hearing. When I tried to message certain family members privately with the truth, I discovered she had already poisoned them against me. She told them I was exaggerating. She claimed Jackson only accidentally sipped from her glass, like it was nothing, like I was dramatic. The betrayal from my relatives hurt almost as much as what my sister did. How could anyone hear that a baby had alcohol poisoning and still defend the person who caused it? Then we received a letter. It looked official. My sister claimed she had entered rehab. She said her therapist recommended family healing as part of recovery. She said she wanted visitation with Jackson after she finished the program. David suggested we verify it. So I called the facility named in the letter. It did not exist. The address was fake. The phone number was wrong. The whole thing was a lie, created to make her look like she was changing, to pressure us into giving her access again. I sat beside Jackson's crib that night, watching him sleep, and I felt something inside me break. This was not just addiction. This was manipulation layered on manipulation. This was someone willing to risk my child's life and then lie about it to regain control. David wanted to pursue a restraining order, but family pressure intensified. People acted like we were cruel for not giving her another chance. The division split relatives into camps. Some supported us quietly, but others openly attacked us. I felt like I was fighting on multiple fronts. The next day, I called Jordan, a friend who worked as a detective. He had helped us with minor situations before, and I needed guidance. He came over during his lunch break and looked through our documentation. He was blunt. He said getting a restraining order was possible, but judges usually want proof of a pattern. One incident, even a serious one, sometimes is not enough. He told us to document everything. Every call, every message, every post. He told us to set up more cameras if we could. And he warned us not to engage with Megan directly, because any response could be twisted into proof that contact was welcome. After Jordan left, I created a separate email account just for evidence. I forwarded messages from relatives, took screenshots of her social posts, and wrote a detailed timeline of what happened. David installed more cameras, covering the yard and driveway. That night, we got an alert from the door camera. When I checked the footage, I expected something normal. A delivery. A neighbor. Instead, I saw Megan stumbling up our walkway at 11:30 p.m. She was clearly drunk. She carried flowers and a teddy bear, like she was auditioning for the role of remorseful aunt. She rang the bell again and again. Then she sat on our porch for 20 minutes. Finally, she left the items with a note. David waited until she was gone before bringing them inside. The note basically begged for access to Jackson and tried to paint it as love, but the flowers smelled like cigarette smoke and alcohol, like she grabbed them straight from a bar. I added the footage to our evidence and threw everything away. The next morning, I called Jackson's pediatrician. I warned them my sister might try to get his medical records. They added a note to his file requiring extra verification for any information. Later that day, the pediatrician's office called me. Someone claiming to be my sister had called asking for copies of Jackson's records. She said she was helping us gather paperwork for a specialist. When the office asked for authorization, she hung up. My blood turned cold. She was not only trying to see him. She was trying to access his information, to insert herself into his medical life like she had a right. Jordan said this helped our case, but it still might not qualify as an emergency restraining order. He suggested we alert any daycare we planned to use. We had been considering a daycare called Little Explorers for when I returned to work. David and I went to talk to the manager, a woman named Karma. As we explained, her polite face shifted into concern. She admitted someone matching Megan's description had visited the day before, asking about enrollment and requesting a tour. Megan claimed she wanted to register her nephew. I felt sick. We showed Karma a photo and she confirmed it was Megan. We immediately decided we could not use that daycare. Instead, we started researching in-home nanny options. That weekend my mother called. She invited us to Sunday dinner. She said she and Dad missed us. She promised Megan would not be there. She said she just wanted to see her grandson and talk calmly. I hesitated. I wanted my parents to have a relationship with Jackson, as long as it was safe. After talking with David, we agreed, cautiously, to go. We arrived around 4 p.m. My mother greeted us with tears and hugs. She cooed over Jackson, who was awake in his carrier. My father shook David's hand and kissed my cheek. For a moment, it felt almost normal. Jackson was on a blanket for tummy time. My mother brought cookies and coffee, and I let myself relax a tiny bit. Then I heard it. My sister's laugh coming from the kitchen. Every muscle in my body tightened. I looked at my mother and asked who else was there, even though I already knew. Before she could answer, Megan walked in holding a glass of wine, smiling like this was some cute surprise. I did not argue. I did not yell. I did not waste a single second. I picked up Jackson, grabbed the diaper bag, and walked straight out. Behind me, I heard David saying something to my parents, his voice sharp, but I was already at the car, hands shaking as I strapped Jackson into a seat. I drove home alone because David stayed behind to confront them. When he came home later, his face looked grim. He told me my parents admitted they set it up. They thought if they forced us into the same room, we would talk it out and fix everything. Then David told me something worse. Megan had been living with my parents for 3 weeks. Thomas had kicked her out after learning what she did to Jackson, and my parents took her in. I felt punched in the stomach. They had lied to my face while hiding the person who endangered their own grandchild. That night I cried for the family I thought I had. David held me and promised we would get through it. The next morning, I sent my parents a short message saying we needed space and they needed to respect it. Then I blocked them. David blocked them too. For a few days it was quiet. I tried to focus on Jackson and enjoy my maternity leave. David returned to work, but he checked on us constantly. Then Thursday came. I decided to take Jackson to the grocery store, our first non-doctor outing. I felt proud of myself, like I was doing normal mom things. I placed Jackson's carrier in the cart and started shopping. In the produce aisle, I felt that eerie sensation of being watched. I turned and saw Megan at the end of the aisle, pretending to look at oranges while clearly tracking me. When our eyes met, she looked away quickly like she was innocent. My heart slammed against my ribs. This store was not near my parents' house. She should not have been there. It was not a coincidence. I abandoned my cart and rushed toward the exit, gripping Jackson's carrier like it was the only solid thing in the world. In the parking lot, I scanned for her but did not see her. I strapped Jackson into the car and drove home, checking my mirror constantly. When I got home, I collapsed into my first full panic attack. I could not breathe properly. My heart raced. My body shook. I felt certain Megan would appear at any second. I called David at work. I could barely speak. He came home immediately and found me still trembling. He said what I was afraid to admit. This was stalking. The next day we met Jordan again. He explained that courts want patterns. One time showing up in a store is hard to prove as harassment, but combined with everything else, it could help build a case. He told us to document times, dates, locations. He told us again not to engage with Megan. So we leaned into evidence. Over the next week, Megan escalated. She created new emails to bypass blocks. She left voicemails. At first, her messages sounded sad and apologetic, but they were always laced with guilt. She talked about how Jackson deserved his aunt. She compared it to childhood relatives, trying to trigger my emotions. We saved everything without answering. As the days passed, her tone shifted. She moved from pleading to demanding. From "I understand why you are upset" to "you are being unreasonable and you cannot keep him from me forever." Then our new nanny, Jessica, told us something that made my skin crawl. While walking Jackson in the neighborhood, she saw the same car circling the block 3 times. She could not confirm the driver, but she was worried enough to come back early. We thanked her and decided to take extra steps. We even bought a GPS tracker for the stroller. It felt ridiculous. It also felt necessary. The next day, our old friend Dakota called. Dakota said Megan had been asking strange questions. Megan wanted to know when Jackson napped and whether we kept a spare key under a planter like my parents used to. I felt my throat tighten. Dakota said she gave Megan no information and called me because it felt wrong. I immediately called a locksmith. We changed all the locks. We changed alarm codes. We checked windows. That night, neither David nor I slept well. Around 2 a.m., David woke me up. He whispered there was a car parked across the street that had been there for an hour. I looked through the blinds and recognized Megan's hatchback, even in the dark. Someone sat inside, watching our house. David pulled on clothes and said he was going out. I begged him to be careful. I watched from the window while he approached the car. The headlights suddenly flashed, momentarily blinding him, but he kept going. He spoke to the driver. After a tense moment, the car drove away. David came back and confirmed it was Megan. She claimed she was just checking we were safe. When he threatened to call the police, she left. The next morning, Jordan agreed we finally had enough for a temporary restraining order. We filed. It was granted quickly. Megan was legally required to stay 500 feet away from us, our house, and Jackson's doctor. For about a week, it worked. No sightings. No new messages. I started to feel a tiny bit lighter. Then I found something horrifying online. While scrolling Instagram, I saw a mommy blog style account using photos of Jackson that I had posted on Facebook. The account name was something like Auntie Adventures. It posted pictures of my child with captions claiming he was her precious nephew, claiming cuddles and babysitting and moments that never happened. I dug deeper and found more accounts on other platforms. Multiple fake profiles using my baby's face, pretending to have a relationship with him. I felt violated in a way I cannot fully describe, like she had reached through the internet and stolen pieces of my child's identity for her fantasy. I reported the accounts. I locked down our privacy settings. David asked Jordan if it violated the restraining order. Jordan said it was disturbing, but since she did not directly contact us or approach us physically, it might not technically count. The stress was crushing us. David suggested therapy, because we were living in constant fear, constantly scanning for danger. We found a therapist, Dr. William, who specialized in family trauma. We scheduled an appointment. During our first session, we explained everything. Dr. William validated our reactions. He said hypervigilance made sense after what we had been through. Halfway through the session, David's phone rang. It was our neighbor. David answered and his face turned pale. Someone broke into our house. We rushed home to find police in our driveway. Our neighbor had noticed the side door open and called 911. Officers cleared the house and found no one inside. Nothing seemed stolen. Electronics and valuables were still there. Then we walked into Jackson's nursery. On the changing table sat a large gift basket wrapped in cellophane with a pink bow. It was filled with baby clothes, toys, and a card signed from Auntie Megan. The smell hit me before I even touched it. Wine. David carefully opened it and found the baby clothes soaked in red wine. The card included a message meant to taunt us, basically saying if she could not see him, she would still mark his life somehow. I felt like my baby's room had been violated, like someone had walked into the most sacred space of our home and left a stain on purpose. Police documented everything and took the basket. They said since nothing was damaged and she was gone, they could only add it to the case. After they left, David and I sat in silence. My hands would not stop shaking. I told him I did not feel safe in our own house anymore. She knew where we lived. She could get in. And the police could only respond after she did something. David suggested we go stay with his parents in Lakeside for a while. They lived in a gated community. They had security. Megan might not think to look there. The next day we packed essentials and drove there without telling anyone, not friends, not family, because we feared information would leak. David's parents, Michael and Barbara, welcomed us immediately. They were horrified by what was happening. They set up a temporary nursery in their home office. For the first 3 nights, I slept deeper than I had in weeks. Jackson seemed calmer too. On the 4th day, I received a text from an unknown number. "Nice place. The garden looks peaceful." My blood went cold. She found us again. Michael, David's father, used to work in security. When we showed him the text, he became focused and serious. He told us to vary our routines, avoid patterns, and stop any social media posts, even private ones. We followed his advice. But Megan kept reaching. She somehow got David's parents' phone numbers and started calling them with stories about how I was cruel. When that did not work, she contacted David's extended family. People who had never met her were suddenly hearing her version of our life, and we had to explain why a stranger was obsessing over our child. Meanwhile, our court hearing for a permanent restraining order approached. We gathered everything: hospital records, police reports, photos, screenshots, witness statements from Dakota and Jessica. Jordan was confident. Then we learned Megan hired a high-profile lawyer known for aggressive tactics. In court, I spoke carefully, sticking to facts even while my voice shook. I explained the alcohol poisoning, the stalking, the break-in, the fake accounts, the harassment. Megan's lawyer painted her as a struggling alcoholic who made one terrible mistake and was trying to recover. He suggested I exaggerated because of childhood jealousy. He argued a restraining order would harm her recovery. The judge asked questions, then said he needed 30 days to review all evidence. He extended the temporary order in the meantime. We left frustrated and drained. Outside the courthouse, my mother appeared. She asked to talk. She looked tired, thinner, like life had worn her down. She told me Megan was saying she had suicidal thoughts. She begged me to drop the restraining order so the family could help Megan together. I stared at my mother in disbelief. Megan endangered my infant and stalked us, and my mother wanted me to remove protection because Megan claimed she was suffering. I asked how Megan found us at David's parents' house. My mother's face gave her away before she admitted it. She said she might have mentioned where we were staying. She did not think it was a secret. I felt betrayal slice through me all over again. I told her we were done. I told her not to contact us until she decided whose safety mattered more. That evening, David's mother handed me an envelope that had been delivered while we were in court. Inside was a handwritten letter from Thomas. He said he ended things with Megan after witnessing her obsession. He warned us her mental state was getting worse. He said she talked constantly about rescuing Jackson. He said she was drinking heavily again and had a wall covered in printed photos of my son. We gave the letter to Jordan and the police. Finally, the police started taking us more seriously. The night before the rescheduled hearing, the security system at David's parents' house triggered an alarm. The camera footage showed Megan trying to climb the backyard fence. The alarm scared her off, but her face was clearly visible. That was the evidence we needed. In court the next morning, the judge reviewed everything, including the new footage. Megan appeared composed, dressed conservatively, trying to look harmless. Her lawyer claimed she was in treatment and produced paperwork. When it was my turn, I spoke from a place of fear and truth. I told the judge I woke up every night to check if my baby was breathing. I told him I could not even buy groceries without panic. I said this was not about punishing my sister. It was about protecting my son. The judge granted the permanent restraining order immediately. Megan was ordered to stay at least 1,000 feet away from us for 3 years. For a moment, I felt relief. Then, within hours, she violated it. She emailed from a new address with a message that made my skin crawl. It basically said no paper would keep her from what she considered hers. We forwarded it to Jordan and the police. Officers went to her apartment to serve the order and potentially arrest her, but she was gone. Inside her apartment, they found empty liquor bottles and a wall covered with photos of Jackson. Some from social media, others taken from a distance. There were maps and notes about our routines, nap times, work schedules. An alert went out for her apprehension. We decided to stay at David's parents' house. At least there, behind gates and cameras, we had a chance. Days passed with no sign of her. We began to hope she might have left the area. Then Jessica took Jackson to the community park with David's mother. I stayed home for my first hour alone in weeks. I showered, dried my hair, tried to feel human. My phone rang. It was Jessica. Her voice was controlled but panicked. She said she believed she saw Megan at the park, following them from a distance. My heart slammed. I told her to stay close to David's mother and Jackson. I called David, who ran out instantly. I called 911. Within minutes, David called back breathless, saying they had Jackson and were coming home. Megan tried to run when David arrived, but the security guard at the gate stopped her. Police took her into custody. When David arrived, I grabbed Jackson and cried into his hair, breathing him in like oxygen. Later, an officer confirmed Megan was arrested for violating the restraining order. She would be held until a bail hearing. Given her history, there was a chance she would remain in custody for now. That night, I slept deeply for the first time in months. The next morning, David attended the bail hearing. His mother stayed with me and Jackson. When David returned, he said Megan got bail, but with strict conditions. She had to wear an ankle monitor, submit to weekly testing, and maintain distance. David said she barely reacted, except when the alcohol monitoring was mentioned. She even argued with her lawyer about it, like sobriety was still negotiable. We stayed at his parents' house longer, not trusting the monitor to protect us. 2 weeks later, Jordan called with an update. Megan's evaluation showed more than alcoholism. The psychologist noted concerning personality traits that might explain her fixation on Jackson. The court ordered dual treatment, addiction and mental health. It was validating and terrifying at the same time. A month into treatment, we received a formal letter from Megan's therapist requesting a supervised family session. Participation was voluntary, controlled, and therapeutic. David and I discussed it with Dr. William. He advised against it so early. He said Megan needed sustained progress before family sessions could help, and even then, he recommended starting with adults only, never including Jackson. We declined politely. Surprisingly, the therapist responded with understanding. Around then, my parents tried reconciliation again. They called David. They admitted they had enabled Megan for years. They said they understood now. I was too exhausted to fight. I did not forgive them, but I agreed to limited updates about Jackson through email, with one clear condition. If they shared information with Megan, contact would end immediately. Months passed. Megan complied with treatment and testing. She did not violate the order. Eventually, David and I returned to our home, but only after installing a security system so intense it felt like we lived in a vault. Then a new letter arrived through her therapist. Megan acknowledged everything without excuses. She expressed remorse for endangering Jackson and for stalking us. She did not demand access. She did not beg. She simply owned what she did. I read it multiple times, searching for hidden manipulation. I did not find any. We acknowledged receipt through her therapist but did not open direct contact. We kept receiving updates showing continued progress. Still, I insisted on at least 1 year of stability before considering any contact. 14 months after her arrest, her therapist suggested a controlled meeting. My body reacted with fear at the idea. The thought of seeing her brought the trauma back like it never left. David proposed a compromise, a video session first, with both therapists present. We agreed. When Megan appeared on screen, she looked different. Clearer eyes, healthier skin, less of the bloated look heavy drinking gives. She thanked us for agreeing. She spoke openly about recovery. She took responsibility without blaming anyone. She admitted she had developed an unhealthy fixation on Jackson, convincing herself that being an aunt would fill a hole inside her. When we cut her off, that obsession grew into something dangerous. At the end, she said she hoped someday she could be an aunt in whatever way we allowed, but she accepted it might never happen. I told her, clearly, that access to my child was not on the table. If any relationship returned, it would be between adults only. Sisters, not aunt and nephew. To my surprise, she agreed without arguing. Over the next 2 months, we did more video sessions. Eventually, we agreed to one in-person meeting at her therapist's office. Megan arrived carrying a gift bag for Jackson. My body went rigid. I reminded her we said no gifts. She apologized immediately and put it aside. No fight. No guilt. That small moment actually mattered. It showed she could accept boundaries now. She focused on repairing harm with me and David, not chasing Jackson. My parents, once they learned about the meetings, tried to pressure us to speed up. I refused. I told them trust takes years, not months. Their pushing only proved they still did not fully understand. Over time, they stopped pushing, because they learned pressure made us pull away. By the 2-year mark of Megan's recovery, we reached a cautious arrangement. She could attend certain family gatherings where Jackson was present, but under strict rules. She had to be sober. She was never alone with him. She had to follow every boundary with no argument. She did. Meanwhile, I stayed in therapy. Trauma does not disappear just because danger decreases. I still jumped at noises. I still checked locks multiple times. When Megan was in the same room as Jackson, I watched her closely, like my body could not forget what she did. Dr. William reminded me that trust is earned, not owed. He said I was not required to feel safe just because someone wanted forgiveness. When Jackson turned 4, we held a small birthday party at a local park. Megan attended. She had nearly 3 years sober. She brought a small gift but showed it to me first for approval, a dinosaur picture book, because dinosaurs were Jackson's obsession. During the party, I noticed Megan sitting alone on a bench, away from the group. I walked over and asked if she was okay. She said gatherings could still be triggering, especially with people drinking. Adults nearby were having beer and wine. I had not even considered how that might affect her. She said she had coping tools now. Then she told me it was her 3-year sobriety anniversary. I congratulated her, genuinely impressed. Then she thanked me, which confused me. She said my boundaries forced her to face reality. She said if I had given in during the worst time, she might never have gotten help. I did not know how to respond, so I just said I was glad she was doing better. That was the moment I realized our relationship would never be what it could have been in a different life, but it could become something stable and managed. Later, Megan reached 4 years sober. She moved to a nearby town and started working in addiction counseling, using her past to help others. She maintained boundaries, always checking before giving Jackson gifts. She never asked for unsupervised time. She respected our parenting without challenge. Sometimes I watched her interact with Jackson at gatherings. Jackson would show her a Lego creation. She would respond appropriately, without intensity, without obsession, just normal interest. Those moments filled me with complicated feelings. Sadness for what we lost. Weariness that never fully leaves. but also a careful appreciation that change is possible, even after horror. Jackson knows a simplified version of the truth. We told him Aunt Megan was very sick when he was a baby and made unsafe choices, so she could not see him for a long time. He accepted it with the straightforward logic children have. He is not deeply attached to her, but he is not afraid either. As for me, I accept that some scars never disappear. I doubt I will ever fully relax when Megan is around Jackson. My body will probably always step closer, always watch. But the sharp terror has faded. What remains is vigilant caution, the kind that keeps my child safe without swallowing my whole life. David and I recently talked about having another child. That conversation triggered anxiety in me, because memories rushed back. But David reminded me we are stronger now, more prepared, better at boundaries. We cannot let the past control the future, he said. He was right. I still keep the letter Megan wrote from treatment. Partly because it reminds me how far things have come. Partly because I am a mother, and mothers keep evidence when danger once lived inside their home. People sometimes ask if I forgave my sister. That question is complicated. Forgiveness often sounds like forgetting, and I cannot forget. I do not think a parent is meant to forget the moment they almost lost their child. What I have found instead is something more practical. I have accepted reality. I have acknowledged her effort. I have allowed a limited relationship that is built on clear rules and consistent behavior, not promises or guilt. The ending is not perfect. It is not the neat, emotional movie resolution where sisters hug and everything becomes warm again. It is messy and careful and real. But the most important part is this: Jackson is safe. And I learned the lesson that matters more than anything else I could ever learn as a mother. You do not owe anyone access to your child. Not a sister. Not parents. Not anyone. A relationship with a child is a privilege. If someone breaks trust in a way that endangers your baby, they lose that privilege, possibly forever. I hope my sister's recovery stays real. I hope she continues helping others. I hope she stays sober and stable. But my priority will never change. My job is to protect my family, hold boundaries, and keep my son safe, even when the threat comes from someone who was supposed to love him.